Welcome to Melt University. This series will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Now, here's your host, the president and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. Virtual Melt University. Can you believe we are rolling through the fall, rolling into the holidays, and pretty soon we'll be rolling into 2021. And we appreciate all the great feedback, input, guest suggestions, following up with our guests, great advice. And today, one of my favorites of all time, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite professionals. I met her when she was 19, way back in 94, 95. And if you look in my book, the word relentless and relentlessness, you know I love that word. If you look up the term in the dictionary, you will see Kristen Kuliga's picture assigned to this. She is the original Jerry Maguire. If you're not familiar with that movie with Tom Cruise, you need to go get it. One of the greatest movies of all time. Been a hugely successful sports agent, sports business woman, sports business person. Has represented Doug Flutie for going on damn near 3 decades. Has negotiated tens of millions of dollars of maybe more of player contracts, sponsorship contracts. Has been on the forefront of many new and innovative companies in the sports business. She first woman ever to negotiate an NFL quarterback's contract. Has been named to boards and awards and all over the place. And the other thing I love about her is that like me, the word no does not exist in her vocabulary, and it's just an amazing background. I think I remember that not only is she an attorney by trade from Suffolk University in Boston. I think that we're in the military. We're going to be in the military. Going to be in the JAG course, but she'll talk about that in just a little bit. But one of my favorite people in the planet, Kristen Kuliga, all-world sports business person and agent. Welcome to Melt University.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vince. And for everyone, I didn't pay him to say that. So, but I appreciate it. Definitely am humbled by those words, but really, really happy to be here. Vince, you've been always amazing to work with, and I'm proud to call you my friend. And thank you very much for having me, everyone.
Well, we do have some stories, and we may delve into some of those stories in just a little while, but or some we may not be able to publish, but. Before we sort of dive into this, this great career that you're continuing, our journey that you're continuing to still be in, one thing we always like our students to hear, particularly now. When did you develop this passion for you had such a multifaceted career, but a lot of it centered around sports. So where did the original passion for what you were doing, where did that come from?
Sure. I think, I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, and my dad was a high school athletic director and coach. And so, I grew up watching film and being in the outside the locker room till midnight, waiting for my dad to drive me home from school. Mm-hmm. I think that that's really where my sports knowledge came from. I was a competitive gymnast growing up, and I played sports, but I was never good enough to be like a D1 athlete. And so I think that my understanding of sports with my academics really was the combination of both. That mm-hmm. I saw a need and a real desire to work in sports because of those things.
And so when you go to undergrad and then you chose the path of getting a law degree, was it your intention to become a sports agent?
So, when I grew up in the early 90s, when I went to college in the late 80s, I grew up in the 70s,
right.
The 70s and 80s. I didn't even know that a career existed in sports, really. And it wasn't until I got to college at UMass Amherst that has a great sports management program that I
Right.
knew that there was a major in that. I was an economics and political science major. And I always had thought I would go to law school because my aunt was a lawyer. And I didn't know a lot of professional women out there that weren't teachers or nurses,
Right.
and so I didn't have that roadmap of somebody to say, hey, you could go work on Wall Street or you could go work in sports or wherever. And my aunt was a lawyer and I just admired that. And so I always kind of thought I wanted to go to law school. But my senior year at UMass, I took a sports law class and I realized that there could be such an opening to work in that field. And so that was a big motivating factor as well. And then when I was at law school, I took more business oriented classes, and I took a antitrust law class with a professor who had worked for Proskauer, which was a big. They work with the NBA and doing the collective bargaining agreement, and so I wrote a paper with her and really got involved on the antitrust side. And I worked for a solo practitioner that did everything from workers' comp to domestic relations cases, and kind of had a broad range of things that I did. I worked for the U.S. Trustee's Office in bankruptcy. And as you mentioned, I was looking for jobs after law school and had got accepted to the Army JAG Corps. So I was going to be a lawyer for the Army, and really excited about that. And while I was waiting for that to start, I met Gary Wolf, whose dad was Bob Wolf, who was one of the premier sports agents. And
now, Bob Wolf, if you look at the Mount Rushmore of agents with Mark McCormick on it, he's got to be right up there, right?
Yeah. While Mark McCormick was very well known at that time for the individual sports, tennis, golf, Bob was the pioneer in the team sports agents. His first client, I believe, was Carl Yastrzemski, who played for the Red Sox back in the 70s. And so he really, put the team agency business on the map. He had Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Derek Sanderson, who is a hockey player. I think he was the first $1 million hockey player. So yeah, and he had passed away in the end of 93. And so this was mid 94, and they were having a lot of issues with clients not paying their agent fees and things like that, because a lot of what Bob did was his deals on a handshake. And so you can imagine when he wasn't around anymore, trying to find any type of paper trail or even any type of precedent that, the athlete still needs to pay their agent fee, even though the agent has passed away, if the contract was done, and, all of those things. So I came on as an intern to work, for a few months. And then I was going to go in the JAG Corps, and they ended up asking if I would stay permanently. So I gave up the JAG Corps, and that was the fall of 94. And I think that's when I met you, Vince.
Wow. I didn't realize that I was so formative and so transformative in your in your career. And I'm honored and flattered to be in that, and be mentioned in the same breath of Bob Wolf. But so we got a lot to unpack here, but you have represented one of my favorite people on the planet, Doug Flutie, for many years. And did that relationship emanate? Because this guy was the quarterback of the Patriots coming out of Boston College, or obviously he was the most famous college athlete at BC with the Hail Mary in the Orange Bowl and all that. But how did that start?
Sure. So when I started at the firm, it was in 94. So Doug came out 85, I believe, was when he came out of school, and he was originally drafted in the USFL by the New Jersey Generals by President Trump.
Yeah, Herschel Walker was going to that team, right?
Yep, exactly. And so he went there first, and
I
then
had forgotten that.
yeah. And then from there, he was in, and this was before my time. And then he went, he played for the Patriots, he played for the Chicago Bears, and then there just really was an opportunity for, what they would call an undersized quarterback. They were looking for the prototypical, 6'4" quarterbacks that stayed in the pocket and couldn't move.
Of course, now the trend is Kyler Murray and would be Doug Flutie.
Exactly. So he was before his time. So anyway, long story short, he was playing up in the Canadian Football League. He played there for 6 years. Incredibly successful.
Right.
Three Grey Cups, 6 MVPs, etc. So when I start in '94, he was up in Calgary, and it was all male agents when I started. And because he was in the Canadian Football League, he wasn't making the firm that much money, and the agents really weren't paying attention to him. So me being the low totem person on the totem pole, the only woman, I don't think that was why, but they said, here, you can work with him. So I started doing marketing deals, and then worked on his contract with the Toronto Argonauts, and created some really unique opportunities for part of his salary to be tied into the increase in suite sales. And he would go up and some of the sponsors and the suite sales, and so it's kind of unique deal structures. And then we have to bring him back to Buffalo. I worked very closely with his agent, his contract agent at the time. And when he was at Buffalo, I had been working on all his marketing, and so we did Flutie Flakes, which was the signature.
By the way, I was going to bring that up. My favorite cereal of all time. Right, just ahead of Lucky Charms. Flutie Flakes. I mean, you were the pioneer. Who'd have thought it before Wheaties?
You wouldn't even have known. It was, and what the other part that I always say is, there was no really such thing as cause-related marketing.
Right.
So we had just started his foundation. His son has autism. We started his foundation for autism. And so I had the idea of putting the information on the foundation on the side of the box and donating part of the proceeds to his charity. And, all in the same literal week. Doug was the backup quarterback. He goes in with 3 seconds left against the Jacksonville Jaguars, runs a naked bootleg, wins the game. His foundation is launched, and Chris Berman starts eating Flutie Flakes on Monday Night Football.
Oh, my God. I had forgotten that. So the timing. So this was even way before Newman or Paul Newman or anything. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun. And we can't forget that, he did a few appearances for Health South.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to you and the Road Show. And so, then his contract agent that I worked very closely with took a job with the Patriots. And Doug asked if I'd be his contract agent as well. And so I got my NFL player certification with the Players Association. And that year, the Bills decided to go with Rob Johnson, release Doug. And I negotiated Doug's contract with the Chargers. And then he played with the Chargers for 4 years, played with the Patriots for another year, and then retired. And then it's been doing broadcasting since. And I continue. So it's been 26 years that I've worked with Doug.
That is unbelievable, and he's also a pretty good rock and roll player too, as I recall.
Yes.
But and we talk about this a lot on the podcast and the newsletter and my book and the classes I teach. That people say, well, Vince, what's your secret to representing Coca-Cola for 20 years? Kristen, what's your secret to representing, Doug Flutie and others for, 26 years. And I say, never take any relationship for granted. It's got to be, you got to water it, you got to flower it, you got to fertilize it, nurture it, give it sunlight, take care of it. The first 2 letters of relationship are RE. The first 2 letters of reciprocal are RE. It's got to be give and take, not an inequitable balance or that creates friction in a relationship. What is your secret? Because we're telling these kids now, like, hey, you're going to be in a virtual environment. You're in a COVID environment. You're at home. You're in Zoom. But you got it. The key is not only what you know, but who you know. What is your secret to building and maintaining and nurturing the relationships? Because you and I've maintained a relationship for 25 years, and that's not easy to do. We don't, never lived in the same town and all this kind of stuff, but we always pick up each other's calls. We take meetings. We help one another. Hey, I need this, and that. But share your secrets to maintaining and growing and building relationships.
Sure. And I do think relationships are key. And with regard to Doug, I think it's honesty, integrity, under promising and over delivering, and managing expectations. And also, thinking outside the box and being creative, and also, being able to tell your client things that they don't necessarily want to hear, but is good for them. And try to, encourage your clients to do things that may not be the immediate buck right away. But, with Doug, there were things that we would get into, discussions, I will say, where he didn't want to do certain things. And, I said, you really need to do this, and this is why. And it's going to build this long-term opportunity. And so, through that, he has one endorsement deal that we're renewing, and the renewal will be for 17 years that he's had the same endorsement deal. Wow. Which with a local New England bank. There was a restaurant deal that he still has where I said, you just need to do this appearance. You're not going to get paid for it, but do it. And sure enough, that's leading to a 10-year deal. And so I think those are some of the things that, he now trusts me, and he knows that I have his best interests in mind. And then I think overall for relationships is you never want to burn a bridge. And, people can be real jerks out there, but you don't know where they're going to end up. And, you treat somebody poorly, it's going to come back and bite you. And so, you treat everyone from the receptionist that picks up the phone to someone's personal assistant to the CEO, in my mind, treat them all equally, do the little things, go out of your way. We did, a couple of years ago at Super Bowl, all the various parties and events that got our clients in, we sent, gifts to the people that were the gatekeepers of those things. And it's those things that I think create longevity, be there for each other. Like you said, I have, Kim Mayali, who is an intern of mine, now runs football for Rock Nation, and
right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's always been my philosophy. So,
well, we also say that, and I tell our kids this, and I wish I had learned this actually earlier, is don't take anything personal. Like you don't know, and particularly now, you don't know what somebody's going through with the crazy COVID. You don't know what influenced their decision. Say no. I say, his first two letters are not yet, and spell no. Don't burn those bridges. You don't know where people are going to come around to, and that works both ways. But I think that is invaluable and timely advice. And like I said, one thing that I've always admired about you, no matter what situation or what it was, is that you just absolutely relentless. And we use that word and we throw it around a lot, but our students, and I call it the participation generation, because they want instant gratification. They want to be Mark Zuckerberg. They job hop. They want to know they leave a job before the seat gets even warm in the chair. And I'd say, look, all those days are over. Now the rules are different. You're going to have to adapt the way you're in the marketplace. And I used to say it would take 100 job. It's like a fishing, 100 casts to get 8 bites to get 2 job leads. And now it's going to be probably 500. But talk about the Kristen mantra of being relentless, because I literally have never met anybody in the world more relentless than you, probably. Maybe I'm a close second. I don't know. You are,
and my sister's right up there too, who's worked in music, as you know. I think for me, I don't want to hear no, and I always believe that there are creative ways out there to come, to an outcome, and COVID is perfect for that. In that, you have to learn to pivot. You have to learn to put your ego aside. You have to learn to be creative and not give up. And perfect example of it's somebody that's looking for an internship. you send one email and you expect the person to just get back,
Right.
doesn't mean that they don't want to. It just means that you're, 400th of the email for the day, and you have all different crises that pop up and you forget about them. But the ones that send a polite email on a weekly basis, every other week, and continue to follow up, and they show that persistence, those are the ones that are going to get the deal. And so, that's, I think, my persistence and relentlessness is something that, it comes from, I don't know where it comes from. It probably comes from my competitiveness of playing sport and whatnot, but
Right.
it also comes from, kind of compassion for others and, really believing that certain things are good for people, and how do you overcome and how do you get back up when you've gotten no, 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 and know that at some point you will get a yes. And so,
Right.
you have to be persistent in this business. And, I have had numerous interns that, have gone on to do amazing things. And I always get asked the question, what makes the difference? And, I'd always say, the little things, that, as simple as one woman she was volunteering at a charity event for one of our athletes, noticed that the trash was overfilling, went and picked up the trash.
Right. Right.
And one of our clients, Marcus Cannon, who plays for the Patriots, he opted out of a really big sum of money this year because he had cancer 11 years ago and didn't want to subject himself.
Right. Right.
He opted out, and I scheduled him for a Zoom, paid Zoom opportunity. And one of the questions they asked him was, if you could give advice to any rookie, what would it be? And he said, do more than what's expected. And I've really thought about that. And that's kind of the line that I'm using now with young people is what's going to differentiate yourself is everybody's going to expect you to come in to be on the Zoom at 8 o'clock or whatever it is, or be in the office. They're going to expect you to do your job. But the ones that go above and beyond and do more than what's expected are the ones that ultimately succeed in this business.
1,000%. And let me tell you this, I live by this credo. It's only as important as you make it. And Kristen, you would be, and no, you won't be because you're in this thing like I am. You would be shocked at the generic emails sent to our generic site. Hi, I'm Joe Smith, Jane Smith, attached is my resume, and I need to make X amount of dollars. The first thing I do with that is I flush it. Right. Because I'm like, this is not an application. This is a process. You're showing me what type of employee you're going to be or not be. And I'm like, are you kidding me? In the old days, I had to go to the library and I had to get encyclopedias and yellow pages. It's just in the palm of their hand. LinkedIn's the greatest tool ever.
100%.
And again, I think, in the spirit of silver linings, I think this is going to be a wake up call for this next generation because, and by the way, you can see the ones that rise to the top pretty quick. And to your point in this Zoom environment, I'm like, I'll be talking to kids and they'll be on the damn phone while I'm on the Zoom and I just click them off and they go, well, what happened? I say, it's a technical glitch. Your brain short circuited. And they're like, do what? So this is unbelievable. Let's talk about where you see future opportunities, given what's going on with COVID and cord cutting and fanless experience. I mean, you and I could have taken the script to Hollywood 6 months ago, and they'd run us out of town and locked us into a mental institution. But given, and by the way, these are very sophisticated kids. They're the most sophisticated consumers there are. But where do you see future opportunities for students in the sports business? Where are you seeing them become uncovered?
Sure. So I think it's kind of a combination of a few different areas, and all of it translates to technology and understanding technology from a business perspective, not necessarily just a social perspective. I see that, so much of what we do with our athletes and athlete marketing, it results from the social media presence. And, and so how to work with athletes and brands to effectively understand social media, how you gain followers, how you engage, how you have engagement. It's not just about the followers. When you post, how you post, what's the content, what are the hashtags, all of those things are so important. And while young people say they know social media, they don't necessarily know the strategy of it, and that's
Right.
consistently evolving. And so from that comes all these other areas. So like the NIL, I think, is a huge area that I truly believe is going to help equal the playing field with female athletes. And I just had this conversation the other day where, we may have female gymnasts from UCLA and female swimmers and golfers that have more social media followers and or more engagement, because traditionally young women engage more in social media than young men do. And engagement means more, talking back and forth, etc. And so for brands, I believe that gymnasts and golfers and female athletes in general have a huge opportunity to make more money than the college football players and basketball players out there.
Let me tell you what, 1,000%. Let me tell you a couple things. First of all, I think it's going to save, quote unquote, the non-revenue sports. I think that this is going to be, NIL is a silver bullet, virgin territory for the first time 50 years in college sports. Here's the other thing. So let's say there's $8 billion spent right now in the sponsorship of college athletics. I think there's another $8 billion out there that companies like Procter & Gamble want to get in, but they never had an opportunity to get in. And so if I went to them and said, hey, I've got 100,000 female athletes, they've got this massive platform, they're very sophisticated, they represent empowerment. P&G, do you want to drop $50 million into this platform? I'm telling you, it's coming like a freight train, and that's why you and I probably got to team up on this thing. But I do think you hit on the we've uncovered, Kristen, with our conversations with some athletic directors, like there's careers in mental health, there's careers in safe attendance, there's safe in content creation, there's event management and venue management and future concessions and all that. And particularly in the college space, there's going to have to be a rapid evolution of the sophistication, because with respect to my alma mater, it's tough sitting on those metal bleachers versus going to Mercedes Stadium and sitting in a recliner. And
100%,
so I think that, this is, as chaotic as this is right now, I think in chaos there's going to be opportunity, and change is inevitable, growth is optional, choose wisely. But talk about at your level the importance of mentors. And I'm not talking about somebody that's going to sugarcoat and, hey, pat you on the back and you did a great job, blah, blah, blah. Talk about the importance that mentors still have always had on you. I know that, and how they still have on you.
Sure. And I wanted to add a couple of other areas, just if you don't mind. I think esports is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. I believe any type of OTT media, whether it's Twitch or podcasts, obviously during COVID, we saw how much podcasts are growing. Those areas are still new, for the most part. And then international, if you can speak a language, Spanish, or Japanese, Chinese, our world is just going to become more global. And I think that's going to be an opportunity across the board. So, but going back to, what did you, sorry, I apologize.
But mentors,
yeah. So the same thing of, just what we're doing right now, right? You could look at as mentorship and really, telling these young people what, giving them advice, and it really is important. But the other thing is you can't just, it can't just be a give, right? Or take rather, if you want someone to be your mentor, you also have to do the work, right? And you have to take the criticism along with the good things. I feel like kids just take things too personally these days. And if I give advice,
participation generation, everybody gets a trophy. It doesn't work that way in the real world.
Exactly. And it could be, as simple as saying, okay, you tried texting them, you tried emailing them. Did you try calling their assistant? Right?
How about a nice handwritten note?
Handwritten notes.
Hey,
Absolutely. Do
Miss
more than what.
Kuliga, I'm a big fan of your work. Would you take a look at my resume?
Yep.
They can figure out where you are.
Right. Right. Do more than what's expected. And then, try to also find like a connection, with somebody as opposed
Emotional connection, low hanging fruit, establish the bond, right?
Right. Look, go on LinkedIn. I had one intern that was awesome. She went to Vanderbilt, and she wanted the internship so bad. She went on my LinkedIn. She looked to see who we were second connected to.
Mm-hmm.
There was one kid that she didn't know, but she knew a friend of him that she was connected to.
Right.
She reached out to that kid. That kid, said, sure, I'll make the intro. And then he said, yeah, the one who she finally met said, sure, I'll make the intro to Kristen and her staff. And, she ended up getting the internship. I hired her part-time she was awesome. Hired her part-time through her senior year in college, and the responsibility that she had was more than what most would have 5 years into a job, and she was hired full-time and then decided to go in a different direction, unfortunately. But that shows how you can find a legitimate, authentic connection to somebody and then do the work. Like, look through their LinkedIn, Google them.
It's in these people's hands. They don't get it.
Right. I know. So the ones that do that, and when they actually do talk to you, and they there was one student not that long ago that said, oh, I noticed in your interview with USA Today, you said blah, blah, blah,
Bingo.
blah, blah.
Bingo.
And I was like, wow, he did his research.
Right. No, here's the thing. It's really not that complicated.
No.
It's really not that complicated. Again, back to, it's only as important as you make it. Hey, Miss Kuliga, congrats on your success. I see that you've been representing Doug Flutie for a long time. He's one of my dad's favorite players. They're communicating intangibles. They're communicating effort. They're communicating attitude that won't come across in a resume. They're making an emotional connection. They're forming that bond. And you're going to respond to that more often than you are some BS, generic outreach. So, as we wrap this fascinating conversation up today, tell our students, and by the way, they don't have to be industry trade or whatever, but what are some of other go-to sources? Maybe, we've heard a lot of the John Wooden books, but what are great sources of inspiration and information, whether it be books, podcasts, that have kept you informed and inspired over time that you would recommend that our listeners listen to over the holidays?
I just listened to the Admiral speech that he gave, and that was really, really inspirational. I'll have to pull it up. I'm a big yogi, so I tend to really read a lot of kind of spiritual books that tie everyone together. One of my favorite, it's not to do with sports. However, I believe it's to do with negotiation and how you bring people together. It's Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's Living Buddha, Living Christ. And it basically talks about at the common base, every human being pretty much wants the same thing. And every religion wants the same thing of compassion, love for one another, helping each other.
I agree with that.
It's so, from a sports book, there was one that I read, and I'm trying to, when I think of the name of it, I will send it over to you.
Yep.
But from a standpoint of some of the other outside tools, in addition to LinkedIn, I'm on the national board of the National Sports Marketing Network. Students can join. It's not that expensive, and they help with resume. They help with networking. There's I'm teaching a class on sports management worldwide, which is they have online courses that everything from baseball analytics to how to be an NFL agent to athlete marketing, those type things are interesting and to see if it's something you want to do. before you go out and maybe get a full-time, go to college full-time or change your major to sports management or go to law school or go get, a master's
Right,
in
right,
management.
right.
Those type things I think are really important. And,
Yeah, there's so many good groups on LinkedIn that you could really be
yeah,
networking in. I mean,
absolutely.
millions of them. But
Right.
this is Kristen Kuliga. I think you guys can see why she's been so uber successful in her career. I think you can see why she's one of my favorite, people and professionals in this world. And I encourage you to reach out to her on LinkedIn and interact with her. I'm just valuable. She'll do anything in the planet for anybody. Just, she's kind of like me. We like to help one another. We've always had great guardian angels, and Kristen, we really, we really appreciate your time and sharing your words of wisdom and inspiration with our students at Virtual Melt University. And we look forward to having you back on and give an update once we get to the other side of this COVID world and we see where some of these opportunities are heading.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so very much, Vince. I really appreciate you having me, and good luck to everybody out there, and happy to come back anytime. And I'm here, if anybody has questions or wants to follow up.
Mm-hmm. Kristen Kuliga, all-world person, all-world super agent, and continue to look for her name in the headlines.
And
Thank
congratulations, Vince, on all your success and, amazing agency that Melt has become and all your successes. So,
well, they always need, one token Alabama redneck on the list. So I'm the only one around. So anyway, Kristen Kuliga, thank you for joining the students of Virtual Melt University.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.